If your current spending patterns put you on pace to run out of money, you are spending too much money. You are overspending. In this video, we're going to get further into that definition, overspending, talk about ways to identify it, and give you some ideas about remedies, how to get out of that situation if you're in it, and methods to get back into control. Hey everyone, I'm Robinson. I'm a financial planner.
I'm Gabe. I'm also a financial planner.
And today we're excited to bring you a little bit more of a tutorial type of video about overspending. So the first piece we're going to get into is what is overspending. Gabe and I spent a good bit of time on this particular topic, and we came up with a simple definition is that overspending is spending that puts you on pace to run out of money. There are a lot of other ways we thought about defining this, but this is the clearest one. This pace could be slow, it could be fast, but in the end, it takes you to the same place, which is running out of money.
It could be in a couple of years. It could be in retirement, right?
Exactly right. This could be next month. This could be in 5 years. But in the end, they get you to the same place. One quick disclaimer that I want to give before we get too far into this video is that this is not a video about having no money and poverty and the impoverished. This is not a video about shaming anyone for overspending or changing behavior or judging where anyone is financially. We're just trying to identify symptoms and help people get into control. So one note on run out of money that I want to make sure everyone knows about is the difference in cash and credit, which are two different forms of money. So for example, if you are overspending and you have $10,000 in credit card limits and you're racking that up every month and you're approaching a place where, 1 month you're at 7,000, next month you're at 8,000 and you're approaching that limit, that's one form of running out of money. So cash and credit, you might start to think of those things a little bit interchangeably when you're thinking about the definition of money, which will also help you if you go and study macroeconomic stuff, right? Credit and credit creation and money, like cash in the bank, are two sides of kind of the same coin.
How do you know if you're overspending?
Yeah, the first thing here is to check your measurements, like measure your money. These things are going to tell you a lot about whether or not you're overspending. If you are tracking your net worth over time or tracking your savings rate, either of those is going to be just a really easy measurement that's going to tell you whether or not you're on pace to run out of money.
One caveat though, the net worth will go up and down depending on like the market, if you're investing in the market, and it could go down if you're spending on something like an investment that won't deliver returns in the future. But you have to look at it from a long-term perspective. The savings rate though, that's something you should be aware of. You should be looking at. And the savings rate is basically how much you're saving over the income that you're making. So just be consistent. There's tools out there we're going to speak about later, but use those tools, online tools, to help you measure the savings rate and net worth. If you're not measuring right now, some of the symptoms that we see when we look at people that are overspending is like paying overdraft fees, having no emergency funds, accruing a growing amount of credit card debt, and sometimes revolving credits, such as like a HELOCs or something like that people just take out because they have access to it and they need it. Just consistently having low or negative cash balances in their accounts. I think the last one here, putting your head in the sand financially, is something we see pretty often. It usually takes a good amount of responsibility, and I don't know, the nice way of saying it is like literally confronting the issue to really be at the forefront of this issue of overspending. What are your thoughts about this, Robinson?
Totally agree. Measuring is the superior way of doing this. If you don't have measurements and one of these symptoms applies, you definitely want to look into this. Next big topic here, what can we do about this? Gabe, jump in. What can you do if you've identified overspending?
The first part is start measuring. Measure your income. And that's pretty easy if you're living on a paycheck. Because you know what the paycheck is going to come in, how much is going to come in every 2 weeks or every month, whatever it is. The hard part is measuring your spending. I suggest always subdivide your spending into two groups: living and lifestyle. If you have kids, you might use that as a third group. What's kids related? But those are the two big groups. There are tools out there that we recommend. The main tool that I use is called Tiller, and you can find it at tillerhq.com. I've heard other people using YNAB, Why You Need a Budget. That's what it stands for. We'll link them in the description below.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit into tools, but I totally agree. Measuring your income is a great starting point. And it's going to be easier because income's just going to have fewer categories for most people. The real trick of this to me, and the confusing part, is that most out of the box solutions, if you're using tech to measure spending, are going to have their own ideas on categories. And that last part in there that says other categories that make sense to you, that's the magic of measuring here, and really the hard part, because you've got to be able to group these in a way that's going to be easy for you to understand when you see a consolidated report. So for instance, I have a category in my Tiller called Wally. That doesn't mean anything to anyone except for me and my wife, because our dog's name is Wally.
I have a category called Looking Good. That is haircuts, stylist, I don't know, nail stuff for my wife. Sometimes some exercise classes if it's meant for that. But overall, the idea here is just create a category map that works for you, as you said. One of the big things we want to do after we create these categories, after we categorize our spending for a couple of months, is projecting forward our income for the year. That shouldn't be hard if you are an employee. You might get a raise. That might be a good surprise. But overall, income is pretty easy to project forward. If you're self-employed, it gets a little bit tricky. Do what you can there. But for spending, the idea here is look at your past spending and try to budget for the future, right? So if you're spending, I don't know, $80,000 a year, and you budget for the future, you're not going to change overnight to spend like $50,000. It's usually going to be on whatever path you were before. Just be cognizant of where the money is going. And if the money is going in ways that you can alter your behavior, do it. That's the benefit of tracking your spending, is you can see where it's going. And I think the last point is implement this without going insane. Do as much as you can. Anything that you do probably will be better than not doing anything at all.
Couldn't agree more. Implement without going insane means that you're not budgeting for perfection, that your budget is not controlling your entire life, that you're giving yourself credit for small improvements wherever they are. And also understanding that this whole process is a snowball effect. So just the fact that you've started to measure, even if you're still in the first one where you're just now measuring your income, if you get all the way to the point of planning and budgeting for the spending that you're going to do for the year, you're really going to be making a big, big difference. Even if you make those budgets and then you overspend them, the fact that you have this information is so, so valuable. It's going to put you in a place where you can make a meaningful change if you want to.
So my question to you is okay, what are some of your final thoughts about this? What are the next steps for a person that's looking at this?
Yeah, if you've identified overspending and you already know you're there, software makes implementation a lot easier. So we've listed a few pieces here. Tiller is my favorite because Tiller lives inside of spreadsheets. You can do it inside of Google Sheets or inside of Excel. So it's a fantastic place to start aggregating transactions and getting really thoughtful about your categorizations, where you want to put those. I really like the kind of standard advice, which is take 90 days. So look back 3 months, because 90 days is likely to capture a few things that are a little bit strange over different timeframes. For example, maybe you pay your car insurance every 6 months instead of every month. Property taxes can be funky like that. There's other examples, travel. Hopefully in the last 90 days, you've done some sort of travel that lets you kind of extrapolate outwards. But that's really important. It's also really easy to get overwhelmed in software. So there's a lot of workarounds that these companies have done to make it easier. Tiller, I think is pretty advanced. It's not that easy for beginners. I've heard Rocket Money is fantastic for beginners. Rocket Money is now owned by Quicken. It used to be its own app called, oh Lord, I'm going to forget something else. Anyways, it was a really popular budgeting app, and it was focused on eliminating subscriptions. but I've heard great stuff about Rocket Money. YNAB, I just saw today, day we're recording this, December 14th, 2022, that YNAB now has a collaboration feature. So you can collaborate with your spouse or your financial coach or financial planner, whoever else. That's a fantastic tool, and I know a lot of people love it. And the last one I wanted to put here is an actual sheet of paper. I love this because there are a lot of people who are getting good financial outcomes who are not using software. So software is like, you and I are young. We live in software all day long. We use it for our clients and professionally. You don't have to go that route to make this all work. A regular sheet of paper or just using your bank account balance. If you only have one account and you're stacking up and getting positive cash balances every month because you're above budget, that works too. There's no requirement to make all these fancy systems. They can help you. They do help me, and I think they help Gabe too, but you don't have to go that route.
So you use Tiller, I use Tiller. I've been using them since they practically launched. And it's true. It's gotten more complex. It's gotten a little bit better, in my opinion. The connections stay for longer. So basically how it works in the back end is like it connects like your financial accounts to the software, and then it downloads transactions, and your only job is to categorize those transactions. And then there is ways of automating some of the categorization. And so it takes us literally maybe 10 minutes every week. I take the computer down when my wife is sipping on some wine, watching some Bravo, and I try to finish the work myself. And if I have any questions on where we spent the money, I ask her, and she usually kind of does the minimum effort job there, but usually it takes one in the couple to do it, and that's all it takes. We try to have a complete spending. We do year by year, right? So every year I've been using a new spreadsheet. That's not like common practice at all. The real thing is using the same spreadsheet over multiple years so you can have that data. But I found that the spreadsheets have gotten updated over time. And so if you want a newer version, you just have to relaunch the spreadsheet, but it's not an issue.
Yep. Last couple things I want to touch on here. Positive attitude. This really can't be overstated how much people hate budgeting. Can we just acknowledge that elephant in the room? This is not fun. Knowing that you're overspending is not fun. Budgeting is not very fun. You got to give yourself credit here and try to get out of any spirals of shame or frustration that you may have around this process and find something that works for you. I'm a big fan of the buddy system here, which is just sharing your work with someone, having someone else to talk about this with, maybe outside of if you have a partner or spouse who you're doing this with. That can be hard too, because there's a lot of these emotions wrapped up inside of money, and budgeting or getting to a positive place and fixing overspending is going to take a positive attitude. And don't forget that there's a snowball effect here. Even the initial parts of measuring and starting to get some awareness is really the first part about this.
Embrace imperfection. I would say, look, when you're categorizing stuff, you will come across stuff that could go either way. It could go in either, it could go, in every category almost. Like it could go in mixed categories. You'll have errors in the categorization. You will have errors everywhere. Just don't worry about it. The whole idea is to get to a place where it's better than before, right? It's a process. It's iterative. You'll make mistakes. You'll have to go back, recategorize. It's fine. Embracing perfection to me means that by committing to doing this, you're just better than before. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to take a long time before things, get ironed out.
Couldn't agree more. This process is meant to be imperfect. Anyone who has a perfect budget, I'm sorry, you probably have some sort of issues with control. That's insanity.
You're not enjoying life, probably. That's another issue. But anyway, good talk about this. If you have any questions, email us or reach out to us via Twitter or whatever contact you can find about us.